Just for a second, I would like all of you to picture the scene. That by the time you are 15, you are ripped away from your family, your extended members who you love so much, from the country you love so much, to then have your mum and dad divorce, and at the same time, you become a parent. Let me just repeat that so it sinks in. By the ripe old age of 15, you emigrate to a country that you don't know the culture, you don't know anything about it. You leave your extended family, everything behind. At the same time, you are facing a war zone at home. Your mum and dad are divorcing. And then you get the news that you become a parent. That is my lived experience. That is my truth. I became a father at an extremely young age. I could have ran away from it, or I could have smashed it head on. And that's exactly what I did. I wanted to really embrace responsibility. So I worked 3 jobs in order to survive, in order to give some sort of future to my family and others around me. Food was always there. For me, it was a happy place. So naturally, I decided to go into hospitality. I studied extremely hard. I worked in many restaurants. I went to college, and I wanted to immerse myself in that world of food. However, there was still something wrong with me, and I didn't quite put my head on it. I always tried to be as positive as possible, but things just kept going on mentally. Being young, of course, I wanted to go out with my friends, and I had to find a solution in order to go out with them. So during my studies, there was only one thing to do. Naturally, it was to work as a nightclub security guard. Or in England, we call those bouncers. Now, I don't know what I was thinking, taking on the job at the time, working in the night, studying throughout the day, but it wasn't that. It led to another outlet. It was as if the inner anger I had inside, it was an outlet to let all of this out. I stepped into a pressure cooker, a world fueled by alcohol and violence. And at times, the inner anger, the trauma, they overtook my prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. These are the 2 most critical parts of the human brain that make those drastic and critical decisions. It was as if trauma, anxiety, anger were all tapping me on the shoulder saying, "Hey, James, this guy's just disrespected you. Time to take it out on him." Unfortunately, that happened on more than one occasion. I felt I had to prove myself to the general public. I had to prove myself to the older bouncers that I was tough enough to be there. But the truth is, I didn't have to prove anything to anyone. And in fact, it was my late father who gave me some incredible words of advice when it comes to this specific thing. He said, "Son, your job, your objective is to make sure that everybody has a good time. Your job is to keep everybody safe." That soon changed my entire perspective. I left the job, I went back to working in kitchens and tried to calm down. However, a few years later, I was thrust into Michelin-starred environments, another pressure cooker, this time working for the most influential, the very best chefs in the world. Working 80 to 100 hours a week, once again, having to prove myself to the executive chef, prove myself to 50 hungry lions. I was still fighting a battle inside. I could not give up. I'd gone through so much. I wanted to push through, even though I know it's going to be a full-on mental battle. So What happens when you get 50 hungry lions in a confined space, 80 to 100 hours a week? Battle royale. The hungry lions I'm referring to are the chefs. We were playing mental chess at all time, survival of the fittest. If somebody walked out in the middle of service, great. Another one bites the dust. On to the next one. And it gave us fuel to push and push. But it was hard. It was relentless. At times, also, unfortunately, getting into physical fights because of the pressure, because of the relentless pace, because of perfection. I'm not going to lie. I broke a few times. But this was because of my environment and my past. So what happens when you work in the most, I would say, Formula One star kitchens, the very best in the world? Something starts to happen. Very, very serious incidents. And it's not just myself going through this. It would be all of the chefs in that environment. I was about to witness the first Vesuvius Effect. Now, in kitchen terms, we have what we call a kitchen supervisor, and we call those chef de parties. And at the same time, we have the apprentice and the commis. Now, a commis chef is one above apprentice, so it's the lowest paid position. On one particular afternoon, I remember this extremely well, this chef de partie started to nitpick and pick and pick and pick away at this commis. Whatever we were doing, that chef de partie was all over this commis, screaming at him, picking on him, pushing him to the edge. So, very calmly, this young commis chef, and I really remember it because of this specific thing, he picked up a beef tomato. Now, if you don't know what a beef tomato is, it's about the size of your fist. They're quite big. So he picked up this beef tomato, very calmly walked over to the microwave, and then pressed ping for 2 minutes. And I was like, this is weird. Is it a new sauce? Is it a new technique? Never seen this before. So we carry on working. Ping, alarm goes off. Very calmly, he picks up this beef tomato. It's steaming hot. And he heads over to his perpetrator. And as hard as he could, he smashed this tomato into the face of this guy, scarring him for life. Now, that may be funny at times, but this unfortunately happens on a day-to-day basis in our industry, and we are trying to change that. When it came to my very own trauma, I outright refused to recognize I had anything. I put it so deep inside, I kept it there and kept it there and kept it there. But whilst doing that, something else would start to shift. That was my mental health. So I would go to incredibly dark places in my mind, places I never thought existed. On the outside, I was bubbly, I was happy, everything was great. But then I would stop talking, going out with my friends. I would stop talking to my family for months on end. And even worse, my marriage would suffer to almost the point of no return. I have to say, it was because of my ever-supportive wife and one of my closest friends who are right here today. They slowly coached me into the idea of something so radical, something so profound, but it scared the living daylights out of me. Put me in a nightclub situation, I'll fix it. Put me in a kitchen with knives, steam, anything like that, I'm in. But this thing that they were asking me to do, I never thought I could do it. And that was simply to open up and talk. Luckily, I did. I got therapy, but I had to unpack all of the demons. I had to unpack my childhood. I had to unpack the fact that I lost my childhood because I became a father. I had to unpack so many demons. And it was tricky. It was tough. But I'm glad I did. The thing is, trauma is very much like a volcano. We all carry some sort of trauma, and it's with us all the time. We just don't know it. It can lie still. It can look like a volcano, beautiful on the outside. Everything is fantastic, perfection. On the inside, the pressure is mounting and mounting and mounting, till suddenly a sight, a word, a smell, some music, all of a sudden, those feelings you had inside come out with volcanic force and often triggering us and making a huge amounts of damage to everyone around us. The reason why I'm talking to you today is, unfortunately, unresolved and unaddressed trauma can have devastating consequences. Some of the most inspirational gastronomic culinary leaders decided to take their own lives because they couldn't deal with the pain that they had. They couldn't seem to find an escape. This is why we have to break that stigma. Now, after some time of opening up and then talking to my peers around me, I knew what I had to do. And that's why today we have found the Dubai Chefs Collective, a place where the most elite level chefs have a safe space to talk without fear of being judged. And by the way, we're not therapists, but we can go for a chat with you. We can talk about the kitchen. We can talk about anything and everything. The most important thing is that initial chat. I want to say to you, the reason why I'm standing in front of all of you today is because I didn't allow that trauma to get to me. In fact, I did the opposite. I allowed it to propel me. And that's why I've been so fortunate to work all over the world. I've been fortunate enough to work with some amazing chefs, amazing people, renowned kitchens, be on the BBC, be right here with you, have a phenomenal business with my wife, know so many amazing people in the industry, even to the point that I host a podcast talking about the same thing we are discussing right now on Emirates Airlines. Never in a million years did I think that would happen. But that's because I pushed myself as hard as I could. When it comes to the future spectra of yourselves, of your internal Vesuvius, the next time you face it, I ask you a simple thing. We don't know at any point when this trauma can rear its ugly head. But I simply ask you to react with courage, resilience, and compassion. Thank you so much.